talk about gut health and your skin. And I have to start it with this because I think it's hilarious. I am lucky enough to have, I'm one of those people that really doesn't break out. And I was lucky enough growing up that I didn't. But I put on my husband's sunglasses the other day, and now I have a pimple in the middle of my I have a pimple right here in the middle. So it's a great day to be talking about skin health, I think. And so we are going to show you a few really cool recipes. I'm going to let Sanaz take it away. And again, please use the chat function. We'll be answering questions throughout. We're both here together, so you'll see us both on screen in a little bit, but I'm going to let her share her slides first, and then we'll get started. So thank you for joining us.
Sanaz, we cannot hear you, hun.
That better?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Amber's voice comes from like the ceiling. That's like, okay. Okay, everybody, I'm Sanaz Demehry. We're going to talk to you about the gut health and its impact on the skin. I'm an herbalist here at UCI, so you're going to hear a lot about fun herbs that we're going to play with and cook with as well. And feel free to use the chat. We'll kind of get to the questions when Chef Jess is cooking. So one of the things is the gut connection with the skin. I think we all kind of know this as a given. Just to kind of keep in mind a little skin anatomy, there's the epidermis, which the vitamin D gets absorbed, the melanin pigment is produced and gives our skin color and protects us from the damage of the UV rays. Underneath that is the dermis. And then underneath that is kind of the lipid fat layers of the skin. So it's important to kind of, a lot of the lipids are secreted to kind of fill in the gaps of the epidermis between our cells. And a lot of times that's what kind of makes the barrier in the skin and protects us from infections, protects us from dry skins. And sometimes when we don't have adequate lipids and fat, cracks develop between the cells and bacteria can kind of go down and get a foothold. And kind of abnormal lipids in the skin layer is one of the triggers for kind of atopic dermatitis and eczema that we'll talk a little bit about. Okay, so the health of our skin depends on several things. One is the gut function. One is the skin microbiome, which there's a couple different organisms on our skin that's important to kind of reflect on. One is Staph epidermidis, and that's the good kind of bacteria that we want on our skin. That's the one that protects us from the bad bacteria and helps keep everything in balance. And then 30% of us have Staph aureus, which is kind of the typical staph that we've heard of. And that tends to be more in patients who have atopic dermatitis as well. And if that becomes infected and the skin becomes cracked, there is a high in resistance rate of Staph aureus. So MRSA, methyl-resistant Staph aureus, is actually kind of a thing in the United States. And it tends to be more people die from that infection in the US than AIDS. So it kind of puts it in perspective that your skin microbiome and your skin is really important. The health, and another thing, the barrier function of the skin is very important. The nervous system, we've all kind of been on vacation and our skin somehow is like glowing and looking better. So definitely stress has everything to do with everything. The immune system as well. I mean, I do some integrated peds And a lot of times when our kiddos have a huge virus infection, a week later they come back and they're covered in a rash. So it's definitely linked with that. And then other things, right? Sunlight, vitamin D, fish oil, getting around 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams of EPA a day, anti-inflammatory diet, which we'll talk about, and then mind-body approaches as well. So the role of herbal medicine, we really look at, herbalists have been dealing with wounds since ancient times. And many of the plants that we use are antimicrobial against Staph aureus, E. coli, and other things. And there's about 300 medicinal herbs that the German health authorities have evaluated. And of that, 47 were actually specifically used for dermatological conditions. So herbal medicine has been around for thousands of years. And we use herbs to also enhance digestive function and decrease gut permeability. So some of these herbs I'm going to talk about, I would recommend you ingest. Some I would recommend you apply on your skin, and some you could do both with. And then we also, when we look at the skin, we look at things we can give to help patients adapt to stress. So whether it be a nervine, whether it be an adaptogen, things that help patients kind of become more resilient to the effects of stress, and also immune modulators, like things like psoriasis, where the immune system does play a role. We look at herbs and supplements that help modulate the immune system, so it's not overreacting. So food allergies in the skin is something that comes from the gut. So atopic dermatitis or eczema is often associated with allergies and asthma. Right now, 1 in 5 children are diagnosed with eczema and 1 in 13 with food allergies. And it's just about 4 times more than it was about 40 years ago. So many of the kiddos that have atopic dermatitis or more broad, we think of it as eczema, also have a dairy allergy. About a third have a dairy allergy. There's also soy, wheat, eggs, and tree nuts. But dairy tends to be more with kiddos. I had one patient that had just a really wicked itchy rash on his skin and also was diagnosed with ADHD. We did, which is the gold standard, which is the elimination diet, which you go off the food completely for about 2 to 4 weeks. And then after that, you inundate yourself with it. So you just drink milk and ice cream and whatever you can. And the patient not only found relief with the skin, but also his teachers noticed a huge improvement in school. So that patient with the skin issue had developed a food sensitivity that was also affecting his ADHD, his focus, and his concentration. So the elimination diet is gold standard. And some think that maybe it's the hygiene hypothesis, that we are so much more cleaner now than we were, right? Kiddos are being born with C-sections. We're getting about 24 vaccines before age 5. We're drinking pasteurized milk, antibiotics in our livestock, overuse of antibiotics. So we're just so much more clean, not to mention the antibacterial gels that we love to bathe ourselves in on a regular basis. So these are all good and they all have a place in medicine, but the hygiene hypothesis suggests that maybe overusing this stuff has led to skin, issues, food allergies that kind of come out on the skin. So probiotics is a big thing. Probiotics show that they actually does decrease atopic dermatitis in kiddos. So there was a study they did with about 400 kids who were high risk for this skin condition. If you have a parent with atopic dermatitis or eczema, then you're 50% at risk for getting it. So the mothers took it the last month of pregnancy, and the infants took it for the first 6 months of their being on Earth. And it reduced their risk or chance of atopic dermatitis in that population by 50%. So it's pretty phenomenal. And that's just a skin issue. I mean, we're at an increased rise of seeing not only skin issues in our kiddos, but asthma that goes along with it and allergies as well. So getting a probiotic in before the baby's born in the mama and, on for the 6 months has shown to significantly help the health of that baby for their lifespan. And another thing that has probiotics, which Chef Jess is going to make, is sauerkraut. So sauerkraut is phenomenal fermented food that has natural probiotics. It has enzymes, digestive enzymes in it that helps break down the food. It's got a lot of fiber, vitamin C and K. K is really good for getting the calcium in the bones and helping with bone health. Iron and it helps reduce inflammation. So, here's a fancy little chart that shows us that studied sauerkraut and showed that it not only helped reduce inflammatory bowel disease, but it also helped decrease allergic diseases like skin conditions. So, so here is proof that it does work. Another thing I want to talk about in herbal medicine, we use a lot of bitters for digestive health and skin health. And recent studies have identified these bitter receptors in both skin cell lines and human skin. And there also compounds have shown promise in addressing not only skin aging, wound healing, inflammatory skin conditions, and even skin cancer. And what's really cool about bitters, basically herbs that are bitter, is that these bitter receptors are now found all over the body. We have found them in breast cancer cells, in nasal cavities, and it's been shown to help with kind of our defense system against bacteria. And we've kind of steered away from eating bitter herbs because why would we eat bitter herbs when we can have a cheesecake, right? Like sweet for sure is much more addictive and tastes so much better than maybe a bitter tincture. But I'm telling you people, it is so good for you. It not only helps with skin allergies, food allergies, digestion, it helps kind of prime the body to make the digestive enzymes. And I see a lot of patients that come in that are on digestive enzymes, and I think, great. But at the same time, I would first rather use bitters because I don't want their gallbladder and their pancreas getting lazy by just swallowing the enzymes. So versus I'd rather have the body do the work and help them do it by tasting these wonderful tasting bitters. So here are some bitters. Again, it enhances digestion. It's been shown to help with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and it decreases leaky gut, which I'm telling you, everybody out there has leaky gut. There ain't nobody out there, I don't care how healthy you eat, you got leaky gut. So it helps. So a couple examples of bitters are burdock root. I think we cooked with once, rich in inulin. It's a blood purifier, and it really helps with those allergic tendencies. Oregon grapefruit, classic for kind of skin conditions, really good internally and topically, increases that barrier function. Dandelion is anti-inflammatory bitter. It's also a prebiotic, and it helps with the intestinal mobility, and it stimulates the breakdown of protein. So food allergies are your body's inability to break down the protein of that food. So something like dandelion actually helps with that breakdown of protein. Chamomile, which is my favorite herb, and we're going to make something delicious with. Again, it's a bitter, it's a nervine, which means it helps calm the stress response. It's anti-inflammatory. It's really good for young kiddos. I love it for my kiddos. Licorice, you just have to watch overdosing with that and blood pressure, but it's also considered kind of a bittersweet herb. Anti-inflammatory, really good for intestinal permeability, and bunch of other herbs, but that's kind of an example of some of the herbs that are bitters. And these are things that you can buy over the counter that come pre-steeped. I make my own bitters for kiddos in glycerin, but these are ones that you can buy over the counter. Urban moonshine, which I love. I usually recommend people to take a nice swig before every meal because it kind of gets the digestive juices going. Swedish bitters is another one. And then Angostura bitters is like a liqueur. Like if you go to Europe, it's like a tradition that they take a shot of this either before or after a meal. And again, these have alcohol. You can get ones with glycerin for kiddos. I use one with kiddos that I mix dandelion, burdock, chamomile, and Oregon grapefruit and vegetable glycerin. And it is delicious. It is delicious, and taking 2 to 3 times a day for kids has really helped kind of decrease their sensitivity to food and also help with their skin irritation as well. Okay, I told you I like chamomile, so we're going to talk about chamomile. Chamomile is not only a bitter, but it's also a nervine. So it's really good for people who feel stressed or anxious. There was a study, I believe, at the University of Pennsylvania, I'll have to look it up, that showed that it was equivalent to medication. I don't remember which one, for anxiety. So it has some It has a lot of research behind it and showing that it really is effective as an anti-anxiety. It's hugely anti-inflammatory. It has been used as a proprietary cream for eczema in Germany since the 1920s. And I still tell people to go online on certain websites and get it because we can't get it over the counter still. So I'm a little pissed off about that. But anyways, it's really good for you. It's really good for the skin. It's safe for babies. It's safe for adults. And studies have shown that it's similar to over-the-counter low-dose hydrocortisone cream too. So it's very good topically. It heals the tissue. It maintains barrier function, and it's also antimicrobial. So it's great to ingest. It's great to put topical. I make a wound salve, and I make sure that chamomile is in it as well as one of the main ingredients because it has a lot of healing properties. And there's also evidence behind it. Here's a study published in 2022 showing this therapeutic applications of chamomile. So, I mean, there's really nothing that's not on this list. So I don't know why we're not all drinking chamomile right now, but it's anti-inflammatory, anti-allergic, antimicrobial. It's been shown to help with some reducing kind of the pain receptors. So it's a very good herb that's been around for thousands of years, and the safety is pretty good. As far as topical use of herbs, I love steeping herbs in sunflower seed oil. Sunflower seed oil has anti-inflammatory effects and restores the barrier function by enhancing the natural kind of lipid production that we talked about of the skin. One study found that it was superior to kind of the petroleum-based ointments for preventing infections in preemies. And it's also, in one study, showed it was superior to olive oil. I try to stay away from any nut oils with patients with skin issues. Anyways, you take whatever herb you want. I usually use calendula, St. John's wort, chamomile, equal parts. You grind it up, you put it in a glass dark jar, you pour some organic sunflower seed oil, let it steep for about 2 to 4 weeks, and then you strain and you use it as an anti-inflammatory oil from head to toe. There was also a double-blind study with 21 people with atopic dermatitis and St. John's wort, and that found it highly effective at relieving not only the inflammation, but the itch associated with it. So I'm going to give you another recipe with my green tea vinegar toner for acne or pimple. Chef Jess, if you want to use it on that one spot you showed everybody, you're more than welcome to, and show us a before and after picture. I found my mouse to like experiment on here. So this is apple cider vinegar with green tea and a little tea tree oil for anybody or anybody's kids that suffers with acne. Again, just to keep in mind, just a couple facts: teenagers who drink 2 glasses of milk per day experience worse acne, and it's likely due to that insulin-like growth factor. So, and apple cider vinegar is a great toner. It's a great exfoliant. It dissolves oils and sebum. You can apply it directly. And then green tea also inhibits sebum production. So you can take it internally and use it topically too. Great. I have used this on my kiddos and it works really good. And then there's always yogurt and honey too, which I remember my parents and my mom and my grandma always putting on their face too. And that's really good for the skin as well. So, oh, look at that. I'm perfect on time. So just a couple takeaways I think you can take home with you, not to forget. And it's all in the slides. And I think you guys get the takeaways emailed to you guys. So you'll have this handy. And I just want to thank you for your time. And that's it. And Chef Jess is going to come on, and I'm going to go to the chat and the questions and see what all you guys have. I can exit out.
Yep.
Stop sharing. There we go.
And we can be on the same, so when they hear us, everyone will hear us together. So we can talk together. Questions are in the Q&A. Do you see it?
I do. I'm reading them.
Yeah, she's going to read them. I am going to be showing you 3 things. And so while she reads over those, we're going to do a vegan sausage, a tart, a blueberry chamomile tart, and then I'm going to show you how to make a really easy sauerkraut. Any questions you want to answer right now?
There was a specific question about somebody and their nose and chin getting itchy last year. I would just recommend using an anti-inflammatory oil. Like I said, if you feel like you have some extra time, make it, or just get the chamomile cream and apply that for that specific spot. Bitter melon is bitter melon good for the skin? I would say yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
And how do you use chamomile directly on the skin? You know, I have people who take baths in it. They use it as a little bath, kind of like an Epsom salt bath, an oatmeal bath. Again, you can steep it in the oil like I talked about and make it like that.
Well, one of the ways that we're going to be doing it, and this is a little bit controversial, I'm sure, because one of the things I wanted to show you was a blueberry chamomile tart. But the problem is we don't like using too many sweeteners in here. So we use healthy sweeteners, and so we use honey. Unfortunately, honey doesn't like to be heated because you lose a lot of the properties. And so the goal is to get the honey up to a temperature that you can steep chamomile in.
Ooh.
So I heated up the honey just until it's like pourable almost. So very slow and low. And then I put the chamomile bags inside to let it steep inside. And so the honey tastes like chamomile. So I'm assuming you could put this on your skin then.
I love
Yes. So you could do that.
And honey is such a good wound healer. You know, you could put it for open wounds and scabs and things like that.
Yeah. So then you could technically use this as some sort of facial product too. And you know what? I've got a better idea because these chamomile bags go in the trash, right? So just use them. Put them all over your face afterwards. Yeah, just like while you're making tarts, like rub them all over your face.
It's the best way. Best way to cook. Self-care while you're cooking. I love it. Absolutely. Don't let it go to waste.
No. Okay, so we're going to make a tart, the crust, okay? So the crust is made, I thought it'd be fun to show you how to make a pie crust. Let me tell you, if you are a fan of making pie crust, who was it? Cooks Illustrated, America's Test Kitchen had the best tip and trick. Now I'm going to tell you what it is, and you can take it with a grain. You can do whatever you want with what I'm about to tell you. There is a misconception that you can cook out alcohol, first of all. There is absolutely no way to cook out alcohol. I could put something on the stove for 50 hours and there will still be a trace of alcohol. Meaning if you have somebody that's recovering or an alcoholic, you never want to serve them something that has alcohol, even if it's just a trace, because they will pick it up. So this is the thing though. When you're making a crust, the whole idea is that you want to use very, very little water because water creates kind of a chew then. And with pie crust, we want flakes. So you try to avoid adding too much water. So the trick is to take half of the water and use vodka instead.
Ooh.
Yes. And the reason is because vodka evaporates and water doesn't necessarily evaporate at the rate that vodka does. So you could add vodka into a pie crust. It'll stay flaky then, and it won't break apart. It won't. Lying at home and you're making a pie crust, feel free to use half, like the water that you're going to add. Half of it can easily be that. So we're using whole wheat flour. I've got butter. And I'm using a food processor. But if you don't have a food processor, what you can do is use just a grater. And you can grate the butter. And why do we want to do that? Because we want to keep the butter as cold as possible. So if you keep it as cold as possible, when you're making the crust, when it hits the oven, it melts. So each of these little flakes of butter then melt inside the flour and give you that flake. And that's why the best pie crusts, unfortunately, are still made with Crisco. Because Crisco doesn't melt at the same rate as butter does. And so flaky crusts usually have a lot of Crisco. So we're going to just do that.
I'm going to answer a couple
Go
questions
for it.
here, Chef. Can you tell us where you buy the chamomile? So online there's Camilla Sen, I think it's called KAM. I have to look it up, but it's you can go on any online. I'm trying not to endorse the one company that we all end up buying from. So find a site and you can buy it. It's readily available online. It's called Camilla San. And what is your opinion on fermented food like pickles, olives, and sauerkraut? I mean, I think we're going to make some sauerkraut today.
We are.
Absolutely. All of them are good, I would say.
And one of the things that people will automatically look at us and tell us is, look at all that salt or look at all that sugar. The whole idea is fermenting is that it's starting to eat away at those things too. So as much as like, I feel like the best example is kombucha.
Kombucha. That's what I was thinking.
Because when you look at the back, you see how much sugar is actually in it. And then you're like, what? But if you think about it, that mother has been eating at that sugar and digesting it for you. So you're not actually getting all of it. Okay. So I got butter, and then I'm going to add a little bit of sugar. You don't have to if you don't want to. It just gives it a little bit more flavor. But if you don't want to, don't need to. And then I'm going to put this top on, and I'm going to, I love food processors, right? Yeah, come on, Jessica. There, it worked. Okay, so we're going to turn it on. At home, pulse it. I've got an eye on this, but at home, I'd rather you slowly do it. I'm going to keep going though. And that's it. I'm waiting for it to look like little pieces of like rice, I guess. And then I'm going to keep it on, and I'm going to add my water. And then I've got pie crust ready to go. So you can take this and you can make one large pie if you wanted to. But the way that you tell it's done, because it doesn't look like it is, but like I said, don't add too much water, is that when you go in and you clump it together with your hand, it sticks together. And that's how you know. Okay. So it doesn't look like it, but I'd rather you add less water as opposed to more. Now, technically, it tastes a lot better if you let it go into the refrigerator. So you would push all of this together and make one big crust, and we would put it in the refrigerator. We don't have time for that today, so I'm just going to make one for you just so that you can see. Still going to let it sit and rest a little bit while we make our filling.
I have somebody asking if drinking straight apple cider vinegar is good for you.
Ooh.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah, if you can, right?
If you can just swig it. Or they have those brag drinks now where they add a little honey to it.
Yeah.
A bit more palatable.
Yep.
But it helps with stomach acid. It helps digest the proteins. And are there herbs that help with scalp issues or hair loss? I used to make shampoo, but jojoba oil is really good. And you can infuse certain herbs in the jojoba oil, like rosemary, is really good for kind of scalp and hair regeneration. So that's good. And can the chamomile tea bags from Trader Joe's be used to make the honey for the skin?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I'm a big Trader Joe's shopper, that or Costco, so that works as well.
I think now that I'm into teas, because we have so many teas, one of the things that I find the most amazing, or like the controversies or the talks around teas, you know what they really are around? The tea bags.
Ah, yes.
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 And like, what are the tea bags made from? And so then it's like, okay, because the problem seems to be that some of them are made from plastic, but the ones that aren't made from plastic aren't exactly biodegradable either.
Yeah.
And like like twings or whatever. There's some really pretty ones, but they're not. So we have to figure this part out, I think, too. Loose teas is the way you do it.
That's how I just pour it in there.
Yep.
You get it and chew on it.
Because it's really frustrating. And it's like, okay, then are there reusable ones that you could potentially use too? So I'm just squeezing out, and I'm trying not to get any of the chamomile. Not that there's anything wrong if I did get some chamomile in there, but I think I might have. So I'm going to add the honey. So if you think about it, this is the only sweetener in this whole thing. A couple more tablespoons went into the crust, but that's about it. And then I'm going to add some cornstarch, okay, or arrowroot, up to you which one you want to use. Some lemon juice, and then a little bit of vanilla. So blueberries, let's talk about blueberries really quick, because blueberries can be good and they can be horrendous here in California. I feel like some of them taste like nothing.
Yeah.
They taste like water.
Yeah.
So I am a fan of the baby maines, like the baby Maine blueberries that are frozen. Frozen blueberries taste amazing. So if you want, go ahead and use frozen ones. Don't defrost them, but use a little bit more cornstarch just so that they don't kind of, so that they kind of don't leak all over the place because they'll have a little bit more juice. So I'm just going to free form one tart. And then you can choose how you want to do these in the future. But it's a great way to get fruit into your diet if you only like desserts. And you can play around with it. It can be different types of filling.
We have another question about chamomile
Go
shots.
for it.
And it says where we buy it from. You can use the tea bags, I think. You can do Mountain Rose. You can do Frontier Organic. And another thing you can do with the herbs and honeys, you can just take it and grind the loose herb, mix it with some honey, let it steep, and you can use that, either chamomile. Sometimes I use sage, like fresh sage or fresh thyme.
Yep.
Not only for wound of the skin, but also you can bake with it, like coat, turkeys and chicken and things like that with it as well. So just have fun with the honey and the herbs.
And does chamomile grow pretty easily?
It does, but I have failed 3 times.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's just me.
Oh no,
It's
we
like
just
my
started
favorite
our
herb,
garden.
but
We
it's
just
super
started.
easy to grow.
It's supposed to be because we have.
It's super
Well,
easy.
no, I don't know because they are the 3 that are wilting out there. They
Maybe
are.
it's because I walked by them.
No, I don't know. It looks like carrot tops, right? It
Yeah.
looks like a little
Yeah.
carrot top,
Yeah,
and
it
so
does.
that's
It's
what we
so
do.
delicate.
It is, and so
delicate.
we're starting our new garden. So if you guys want to see our new garden outside, if you're ever around, don't pick from it, please. But we are starting a new garden with the master gardeners, and so we have a lot going on right now.
It's exciting.
So a lot of people think you need a rolling pin. You do to a certain extent. If you're making something that looks perfect, but if it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't need a rolling pin. The other thing you can use is if you drink wine and have an extra bottle of wine just lying around, it makes a great rolling pin. Just use the end of it. Just use the back side of it. So all I'm doing is I'm just pushing this, or if you're making like pizza crust, just go around. The whole idea is this is rustic. It looks cool. There's no real shape to it. It's a free form tart.
I love it.
5-6 inches about. I'm going to take some of these berries and the honey and pour it right in the middle. And you can get 6 to 8 of these out of this. And if you think about these blueberries will pop on you a little bit. So what you want to do is you just go over the top and form a lip around it. And then you can fill it even more. So I've got a little tart just like that. And you do want it to go over a little bit just so that it doesn't pop open because it does have a tendency to come open. So if you could just go over the top and fill and kind of push it all together just like that. And then you've got a tart.
It's awesome.
And then I've got a little bit of egg. If you wanted to, you could brush a little egg on the outside to make it super pretty and crunchy. So I'm going to put this in the oven and I'll have my students make more. We're going to put that in the oven.
I have somebody here who says she got chamomile from her neighbor's garden. She's not saying how she got
Oh.
it, like whether she looking. We're not going to address that. And she dried them. Is it safe to use it? Absolutely,
Yes.
it's safe. You don't need to sterilize it. Put it in the honey. Use it. Same with your neighbor's thyme and rosemary and sage. Like get whatever
Yes.
you can and
Yes.
dry them. Usually 24 hours. Dry them outside or on some baking sheet, and then they're totally safe to use.
I feel like it was funny because when you were saying you can put yogurt on your face, I was like, it's one of those, a lot of things that you think are going to go bad, at the very least, use it in your hair or your face.
Totally.
Yes. Like eggs. Don't use hot water, but eggs, like egg white, they're really good for your skin, like tightening up your skin. There's a Korean brand. It was called a zombie mask. And all it was egg whites. They would use the egg whites and they would dry it out. And then when you added water and you put it on your face, it literally felt like it was cracking because it was so tight. Another one with anything with like the enzymes, like papaya and the pineapple.
Yes.
Natural, what do you call them? Natural skin tighteners.
Yes.
Feel it.
Yes. I put, you can also get like the chamomile hydrosol, which is the water that evaporates when you make the tea. And I sometimes mix it and make a toner with it because that's also really good on the skin and it gives that little like tight feeling with the witch hazel.
Yeah. And it's like rose too, the rose water that they sell at Trader Joe's. That's one of their best selling products from what I heard. That spray, yeah, the rose water spray I've heard is pretty good. My daughter even likes it. All right, so now we're going to show you how to make a homemade vegan sausage. Because why do we need to make a vegan sausage? The only reason why you need to make a vegan sausage, I feel like most of the time, is because we eat too much processed food. And if you were to look at the list of bad foods, I'm sorry, I used air quotes. I get in trouble if I use air quotes and I feel bad every time I go like that. Hold on one sec. Can you grab me a can of white beans and rinse them? Sorry, I already used the other can. That's why. There should be one in the cart. So sausage is one of those things that ends up being bad for us because it's uber processed. Now, vegan sausage in the store is even worse. I will be the first one to say, just because sometimes it's got extra salt, sodium, because you need a lot of flavor to make vegan food taste good. And then it's got a lot of additives to make it the consistency that you want. So like a lot of the guar gums and things like that. So we're going to make a vegan sausage that's very, very healthy, plant-based, and nice. So we're going to start with oats. And yes, you do need a food processor. This is one that I would not want you to do any other way. So we got oats. We've got some walnuts in there, garlic. And then we're going to do half of an onion. Okay. And I'm going to give this onion a rough chop before I put it in the food processor because we don't want to puree everything, but we want it fine. And the last thing I want is the onion to still be whole in there before we do it. And then we've got some tomato paste. Tomato paste, if you haven't heard me say it once or twice, is the cheat for umami flavors. So if you're ever just like in a pinch and the food doesn't taste just right, tomato paste will clean it all up for you. Because tomato paste is kind of sweet and salty at the same time. And then we've got some soy sauce or tamari, either one. And then a whole bunch of cool spices, including Italian seasoning and fennel, which make you feel like it's a sausage then. You got garlic, onion powder, and some smoked paprika. And then a flaxseed egg. So in here we have flaxseed that's been in water. So this is all nasty and gunky and a big glop. I love flaxseed eggs. Thank you so much. And then a whole flaxseed egg. And then a can of white beans. Ooh. So the white beans are what really kind of bind it all together. And then we're just going to let this go. Oh, it would help to plug you in. So do it a couple times. Like I said, you don't want it pureed, but you can get it. It's hard to puree anyways, just because of the oats, but you want it thin, but not too thin. There we go. And then you're going to grab parchment paper. And I know people are going to ask me about parchment paper. Yes.
We have a question about parchment paper.
Yeah. It's like foil. Can I cook on foil? No. Can I cook on this? No. Parchment is probably the safer one out of all the other ones, like foil. Foil can get a little funky on you. If you've ever covered food and noticed your foil eating away, is going into your food then, right? So we have to think about what it is that we want to cook on. Now, parchment paper can get pricey. And the last thing I want is you not to cook just because something costs too much money. This is one of those things where I will say you can buy the white one. You do not need to buy the brown organic paper. Yeah. I mean, if you really wanted to be super uber healthy, you could. What we're going to be doing is just steaming these. So it's not actually coming with too much heat. And I'm going to just take a little bit. I'm going to put it at the bottom of the parchment. And then I'm going to do that and then wipe on my,
Yeah.
yep, sorry. I
gotta
usually have a towel, and then I'm going to roll it up just like that. And then we're going to steam it. After you steam it, we're going to cook it. So I have some already steamed, ready to go. Praying to the sausage gods that they turn out all right. To the vegan sausage gods, right? And I've got one ready to go. So hold on, let me grab it and see what it looks like.
And while you do that, Chef,
Go for
what
it.
about someone's concerned about lectin in beans and grains?
Ooh,
Not good for your gut health. What are your thoughts?
I love that question because this is my thought. I feel like there are so many other things in our diet that are bad for us.
Yes.
This is the last thing that we need to be
Thank
worried
you.
about. But if you really are, what you can do is you can buy sprouted
Okay.
lentils, beans,
Yes.
anything. So they are sprouted and you can even sprout your own. In other words, you let it sit in a little bit of water, 12 hours, 24 hours, and it starts digesting it. And so it breaks it down so it's easier to digest, but it's definitely not something I want you to avoid just because.
Okay. Good answer.
Yeah.
And then I have a question about the rose that someone collects rose from the same neighbor.
Yeah.
And also the evaporated water, she's wondering if she could use for her face or her scaly skin.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would definitely say that.
Yeah.
So these are, they'll be easier to take apart. Mine didn't cool down yet. I should have taken it out to cool down. But as they cool down, you'll be able to kind of like peel it off a lot easier because there's no oil in here. But because of all the good oils that are from the food, like the flaxseed and things like that, it comes right off. But you just need to let it cool. So it's about being patient, okay? And then it'll come right off. So mine aren't cool enough. This one is though. And then you're going to take this. I have my pan ready to go. I am using a nonstick. Not that I say you guys should use a nonstick. I'm reseasoning my cast iron right now. So because I'm reseasoning my cast iron, I pulled out this beautiful brand new nonstick pan. We do not advise it. We are doing this. I would say use a cast iron would be perfect for it. So then you're just going to pan fry it in a little bit of oil. And you've got a perfect sausage that you can serve. You can put it in a bun. You can put it in anything that you want, just like that.
Love it. And the amount of soluble and insoluble fiber
Yes.
in that. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's so good for your gut.
So you can enjoy that and and again, what's making us think sausage, Italian seasoning, and fennel seeds. Those two ingredients really make or break sausage. Okay, let's talk about sauerkraut. Do you make sauerkraut at home?
I used to.
Not anymore.
I got busy.
Yeah. So sauerkraut is, I feel like it's so cheap to make that you should make it on your own. The question is how will you eat it all?
I love sauerkraut.
Because this will make quite a lot of sauerkraut right here. It shrinks down a little bit. But I've got this amount of a head of lettuce. We're gonna shred. So I'm not gonna shred the whole thing. I'm just gonna do a little bit of it. But I'm gonna cut halfway through. Oh,
Anything? I'm sure.
no, stand up. Yeah. Exercise. Right.
Better view over here.
No, exactly. Have you ever used it with red cabbage?
No.
See, I think red cabbage would be good too.
Huh.
We did buy organic cabbage, but out of all the organic, like if you needed to buy things organic, this is one you don't need to buy organic. Bugs don't really like it. It's okay. It doesn't get to the middle too. So I like doing it on a diagonal. And if you see, I'm going to pinch the blade, claw, and then I'm going to just go around the whole veg. You can use even a food processor that has the grater attachment already on it. But the idea is you want to get it as fine as possible. Now, once you've done one batch of sauerkraut, you can think of all the different flavors that you want to add inside, including dill. What else do you do?
Fennel.
Fennel,
Garlic.
caraway,
Ooh, carrot. Yes.
and then you can do turmeric, ginger. So you can add all of these things inside. We are a fan. I am a fan. I do not get any money I'm not whatever about them, but Fermentation Farm, if you've never been there, definitely step in there and just get some ideas. Because you can make these things and they even sell the kits for you to make them. They're not trying to sell you all this fun stuff, but if you wanted to, you could. It would help to
I'll
have
see
a.
her on the camera. Oh, yeah, that's because I'm moving.
Oh, yeah, no, that happens. And one of the things is this week alone, we had 2 cooking classes out on 3 days. And so it's been we've been very busy in this kitchen. And if you're interested, we are bringing back community classes. And so if you want to come into this amazing kitchen, we only limit it to 2 people in a station. So you really get a nice hands-on experience. And so if you want to join us, we're doing lunch classes and night classes. So it's all up to you.
How fun. Someone's asking about the bacteria in yogurt and sauerkraut and if it can generate histamine and allergies in people.
Ooh.
I
wouldn't think so, but I'm not a expert on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you look at the whole foods, you're getting so many benefits. You're getting the fiber, you're getting the vitamins, you're getting the juices. So I haven't heard anything about that. And I think it would actually help. Studies have shown that it actually helps with your allergies
Histamines,
by improving your gut. So that's my take on it.
We were just talking about allergies in here with some of my students. How it's interesting how there aren't that many peanut allergies, but the other ones are just blowing up like crazy. And so it's funny how things work or that we just don't know. But food is a funky one. All right. So we got all this cabbage ready to go. And now comes the scary part where you're like, what? You're going to add all that? Why? Because we need to. So the whole idea is that if you go back to some of our other lessons, there's a whole one on lactofermentation that can tell you how much salt to add. It's a lot of salt. But salt is so important. I know salt gets a bad rap because we do have too much salt in our diet, but salt is so important because salt is a preservative. It extracts things. It cleans things. It does so much for us. So I don't like giving it a bad rap. We do definitely eat too much of it, but let's use it the right way. Yes. Clean with it. No.
Yes, it's great when it's added to food and maybe not so much when it's in a processed.
Exactly. So the whole idea is we're going to go in here and we're going to massage. So this is the fun part of making kimchi and sauerkraut is that you're letting the little salt extract all the liquid in there. And you're just going to keep massaging it and talking to it and being nice to it and going around and doing all of this. Salt-wise, try not to use the iodized. You do want to use like a sea salt. Just because you don't want any funky additives in here. I do realize that there's been a discussion about how people don't have enough iodine in their diet though, right? And I feel like the people who don't have enough iodine in their diet are the people who are cooking at home and not going out to eat. Because let me tell you, out there, they're still using table salt. They're not buying the expensive stuff. So look, it's already about half. It's already reduced to about half. Really just breaking it all up, okay? And as you do this, there's going to be juice that comes out of it. I'm going to stuff it into a jar, just like this. So you want to get mason jars, and then you want to clean them, okay? It's boiled water. Put them in the boiled water. Let them boil in there for a little bit. And then I'm just going to push the sauerkraut down.
And someone's asking if they can use the Trader Joe's sea salts for this.
Yes, definitely. I think so, unless it has the iodine added. Some of them are having iodine added now. So I'd avoid the ones that have the iodine added. But now I'm going to take this and I'll let it sit for 24 hours at room temperature. What will happen is that there's going to be liquid that starts to accumulate. And what I want you to do is you're going to keep pushing it down to make sure that the juice stays above it like this. So I've got a jar here, and every day what you want to do is you want to go down and push down, okay? Burp it, which means opening the jar. So every day you want to do this, burp it, put it back in, but make sure you push everything down. it's only safe if it's covered in that water. So one of the fun things you can do is you can take another leaf, a big leaf, and that becomes the leaf that you remove. Okay, so you never eat this big leaf. This leaf will be removed. Everything underneath it will be safe to eat then. On top of this leaf that's covering everything, you can put a weight. So you can put like a bag of a Ziploc bag of water. You can find weights online, like the metal weights, and it'll hold everything down so that the liquid can still cover it. But this extra leaf on top becomes an extra layer of protection if you're really worried about mold and things like that. So you can do that as well. And I think that is it. Any questions?
Yeah, someone's asking why they can't use iodine salt.
Oh, it's just, it interacts with the fermentation process. It's just another chemical that we don't need in there. We want to keep it as pure as possible. And so using sea salt from the sea technically would be the best. And so you want it as natural as possible to inhibit anything that might go wrong with it.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. How much salt did you use? You knew that was coming.
I knew, I know. I was like, for one, I know. I was like, I have beautiful assistants. My students are amazing and they're all undergraduates and they love doing all of the work for me. So about 3 pounds, for about a 3-pound head, you want about 1.5 tablespoons. Kosher salt would be good too. So sea salt, kosher salt, any of those are good to use. Yep. And that's it. And you can keep it for a few months. So, but just make sure you burp it and things like that, because it does have a tendency to, if you've ever bought like sauerkraut and left it in your car.
Yes.
Yes, that's not a good thing. It does tend to leak and explode and go over. Kimchi does the same thing too. So you really want to be careful whenever you have these kinds of fermented foods lying around.
And where do you store this?
Refrigerator. So after you're at the fermentation process that you like, so taste it. After the first day, start tasting it. And then you refrigerate it when you're at the level that you like. And some people will go up to like 7 days. Some people will be done in 3 days. So it's really up to you what kind of flavor you're looking for.
I love it. I love how you can get creative with it and add all these other fun things.
Yes. Ooh, will you change the salt if using kosher? Yes. And so the kosher salt is less because of the size of the grain. So what I would do is, again, if you are really interested in getting the exact right proportion and using the least amount of salt, there online, you can find our old lacto fermentation recipes, or you can just go online and there's a million calculators. And it's a calculator where you actually put in what the weight of the food is and then how much salt. And it'll tell you the exact amount that you need based on what it is that you're trying to ferment. Because different things will have different amounts of salt.
And someone's asking if you leave it at room temperature when they are fermenting.
Yes.
Okay.
Dark, not in the sun, please. Somewhere like cool, like 70-ish. I know 70 is hard in California, maybe 75. But like a dark, coolish, but not in your refrigerator.
And could you use applesauce to cut the sourness?
Ooh, no, but add apples.
Oh.
Yeah, just add straight apples. That's one of my additions. You can add apples inside. It's really, really good. Yeah, if you add apples, you can even just grate the apple. And that way it'll spread. Don't use the applesauce, but grate apple. Yes.
Love it.
I've never tried applesauce, so I don't know. But yeah, that would definitely be a good addition. Any other questions? Oh, I guess I should show you my tart. So it needs a little bit more time, and I should have folded it over a little bit more, but it's good that I did it so that you can tell what I mean. But you want to like almost force it over the edge. And I would put it in for a little bit more for at least one of the big berries to pop. So there is your tart. Serve it with you could serve it with some healthy ice cream. Yogurt. Yeah.
I was thinking some herbal teas.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yep. Some chamomile yogurt, maybe. Yeah. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Any other questions out there? No, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all good gut and good skin health.
Yes.
And we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thank you.
Bye.